Shadow Magic by Joshua Kane. I defy you not to love the story. Rick Riordan. Shadow Magic by Joshua Kane, with illustrations by Ben Hibbon. I do have the book. The book is just away at home. But I found a PDF for you guys. To my wife and daughter. Give me my robe, put on my crown, I have immortal longing in me. From Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. Cast of characters: Port Cutlass, Thorn, a runaway boy, Merrick, a wandering minstrel, Lucas, a slave master. Castle Gloom: Lilith Shadow, ruler of Gehenna, Pandemonium Shadow, her uncle, Mary, a servant, Baron Sable, a nobleman, Rose, a servant, Wade, a squire, Old Calm, the weapons master, Tyborn, the executor. Prison Palace: Duke Raphael Solar, ruler of Lumina, Gabriel Solar, his son and heir apparent, Clef de Jing, a hostage, Beast, Custard, a puppy, Thunder, a warhorse, Haze, a monster. Port Cutlass. Chapter 1. How much for this boy? Asked the man, prodding Thorn hard in the chest. Thorn grimaced, but did nothing. The slave master, Lucas, wiggled all his fingers. The man frowned. 10. Captain Pike sells his boys for 5. Lucas, born ogre ugly, but turned hideous by a large scar across his face, laughed. Pike sells them half-starved from disease. He tugged Thorn forwards by his manacles. Have a good look at them, Master Sean, he said. 12 summers and already taller than many men. Straight limbs and a sound chest, and look at these! Lucas twisted Thorn's wrist to turn his palm up. Good old-fashioned farmer's hands. I swear by the 6th you put him in the field and you'll get 10 years out of him. Maybe 15. Thorn pulled himself free as they talked. They talked as if he was some animal. The customer, Master Sean, prodded him again. Open your mouth, boy. Thorn clamped his mouth shut. Lucas cuffed the back of his head. Open your mouth. Thorn did. Is he simple-minded? Asked Sean. I've no use for simple-minded boys. Thorn Sherlock punched him for that. Sean needed punching. He was big and round and squashy face with a bulbous nose crowded with hairy warts. But hitting a customer will only earn him another beating. The 3rd this week. So Thorn kept his fist clenched and by his side. It wasn't easy. Or is he mute? Is that it? I've no use for mute boys either. Speak, boy. Say something. Speak? All right. Fat, stupid, oof, said Thorn. Sean blinked. Thorn spoke some more. Smelly, foul, toad. The beady, puffy eyes almost vanished into Shane's doughy face. I've even less use for Shirley boys. He swept around and marched off. The slave master grabbed Thorn's hair and pulled him so they were face to face. I'll deal with you later. Then he shoved him off his feet before chasing after his will-be customer. Wait, Master Shane, wait! He was in for a beating later tonight. Maybe it won't be too bad. Even Lucas knew that bruised slaves didn't fetch the best price. A shadow crossed over him. That was unwise, my young friend. Thorn looked up to see Merrick, a minstrel the slaves had captured a week after him. Merrick folded his long skinny legs and sat down beside Thorn. I don't care, I ain't no slave. Merrick shook the manacles around his own wrist. These aren't bracelets we wear. Seagulls squawked overhead and limp green flags hung off the flagpoles. Fishermen sold their day's catch from the quayside. Farmers herded sheep and goats along the narrow alleys into pens. A bony dog searched the rubble. The air stank of unwashed animals, rotten fish, and too many sweating people, and the sea breeze did nothing to relieve it. But the foulest smell came from the slaves, disgorged from the ship's hulls after weeks, sometimes months, of crowded travel. They were now lined along the platform, men, women, and children. Plenty of little ones. They didn't run as fast, so were begged first. It shouldn't be allowed, stealing people from their homes. Thorn looked down at the clutch of small children. Most had slumped into quiet despair. Others still gazed around, searching the crowd, perhaps hoping their parents might appear and save them. It isn't allowed, answered Merrick. The great house certainly does not have slavery, but we're a long away from them, and the protection they might offer. He brushed dirt off his muttley. The patched costume might have been bright once, but left on the road had faded the brilliant colors to a dull, lifeless gray. I bet you never thought you'd end up here when you ran away from home. Thorn touched a carved acorn and amulet hanging around his neck. I didn't run away. No, so what was it then? It ain't none of your business. The less Merrick knew about Thorn's crime, the better. The minstrel couldn't keep his mouth shut, after all. It was his job to tell stories. And if any of them knew why he left home, they'd stretch his neck with a rope. Did you commit some disasterly offense? Merrick winked. That's it, isn't it? You stole the heart of a fair-faced princess, but her evil father, the Baron, had her promised to some wicked Chinese son of an earl. She's in her tower right now, pinning for you. Of course not. What a shame. That will have been a good tale, he said. So, tell me, why are you here? I don't even know where here is. You are in Cutlass, declared Merrick, sweeping out his arms. The largest port along the Sword Coastal. A place where you can buy anything, and I do mean anything. Home to slaveries and pirates and gentlemen of little virtue. Gentlemen of little virtue? Like you? Merrick raised an eyebrow. Oh, so there is a wit under that thatch of straw you call hair. I ain't stupid. I don't know what you are saying, Thorn. Shall we see? He squeezed Thorn's biceps. Hey! You're strong, but then farmer boys usually are. You still have all your own teeth, and that's a bonus, but you're utterly lacking in charm. And, if you don't mind me saying so, not particularly attractive. Can you sing? Dance? No, come on, you must be good at something. I'm good at a lot of things, said Thorn. Then he muttered to himself, just bad things. Yeah, like spilling blood. Merrick shook his head. If you're not careful, Lucas will sell you to the mines, and you don't want to end up there, believe me. I ain't going down to no mines, and I ain't going to be no slave. Dad said it's better to be hungry and free than a fat slave. Fathers, like most men, say stupid things. Don't you say that, snapped Thorn. You don't know nothing about my dad. His dad was worth 100 Merricks. All the minstrels could do was play the lute, sing badly, and tell stupid stories. Thorn's dad could do anything he taught Thorn how to. No, don't think about that. That's what you've got here in the first place. Merrick raised his hand in surrender. I apologize, my young, irresistible friend. I'm sure your father is a parent of wisdom. Typical Merrick, one insult hidden in a compliment. His tongue was more twisted than a viper. Other buyers walked along the line. One or two to stop with Thorn, but he glared back at them and they moved swiftly on. It looked like nobody wanted Shirley boys, but one man wasn't scared of, a swordsman. Thorn recognized the sword. He met enough on the road, and he knew to keep well away from them. The swordsman sat easily on a saddle, elbows resting in the pommel while his horse, a huge black stallion, pulled up weeds grown beside a trough. He wasn't rich, judging by the plain tunic, muddy cloak, and worn boots. The sword didn't look like anything special, but it did look well used. and he had dark, dead eyes that had seen too much. The swordsman flicked his reins, the horse tugged the last of the weeds free, and rider and horse sank back into the crowd. "What about you, Merrick? Ain't you scared of ending up down in a mine?" Merrick waved his long fingers. "What barbarian will waste such talented digits on digging rocks? I, who have performed for each of the 6 great houses. I have danced in the mirror chamber of the prison palace and sung in the grim halls of Castle Gloom, too." "You've met the shadows?" interrupted Thorn. "The lords of the dead?" "I think they prefer the term necromancer. But yes, I'm acquainted with the ruler of Gehenna." Necromancer. Another one of Merrick's fancy words. But fancy words didn't make things any different. Everyone knew what the shadows were. Dark sorcerers who raised the dead from their graves and had zombies for servants. "And you came back alive?" Thorn checked Merrick's neck. "Was that a pair of bite marks or just eager fleas? Did any of them drink your blood? Ain't Lord Shadow a vampire?" "Lord Iblis' shadow walked in the sunlight last time I was there. Not that the country of Gehenna gets much sun." Merrick rubbed his arms vigorously. "Give me the Garden of the Sun any day." How many nights had Thorn's dad told him and his brothers and sisters tales about the Shadow family and the Castle Gloom, their sided tales without windows. How the living and dead danced together at the great balls and feasted on blood and corpse. Thorn remembered the warning his parents had given them all. He must have heard it 1,000 times. "Be good, or the shadows will have you for dinner." A child screamed. "Who's that?" Thorn turned towards the noise. The second scream was louder and longer. "The twins," said Merrick. Thorn jumped up, but Merrick gripped his arm. "This is not our affair," the minister warned. Master Shane began dragging Tam away. The boy was 6, the same age as Thorn's youngest brother. Tam was crying and reaching desperately for his sister, Annie. The girl sat crumpled in the mud, her own face screwed up in misery. Thorn's blood boiled as he watched Lucas's laughing at Tam's feeble attempt to break free. Thorn had looked after the twins since the day they had all been caught. He felt reasonable for them now. "Do not get involved," Merrick tightened his hold. "You only get in more trouble." For a second, just a second, Thorn stopped. There had been nothing but trouble since the day he left home. Maybe Merrick was right. He shall sit this out. Let Shane drag the boys off. Leave the sisters sobbing in the dirt. That's what some will do. Yeah, some, not me. Chapter 2. Thorn wrenched himself free and leaped, smacking onto Lucas's back, knocking him face first into the mud. Both tumbled over, punching and kicking. Lucas tried to grab him, but Thorn bashed his slaver's head against the ground. A boot slammed down beside him, and that was warning enough. Thorn rolled away, just as the guard swung his cudgel at him. The noble's stick cracked the side of Lucas's skull instead. Thorn scrambled up and rammed his head into the guard's guts. The man went down with a grunt as Thorn skidded beside the girl. Annie stared at him, open-mouthed. "What are you waiting for? Run!" he said. What? Thorn hauled her up and pushed her off. "Run!" Tam saw his chance and bit Shane's wrist. Shane screamed and let the young boy go. Tam took his sister's hand, and a second later the pair vanished into the busy market. "After them!" spluttered Lucas. He stumbled towards Thorn, blood dripping from his head, and drew a long curved knife from his belt. "You're going to pay for this." "This is real bad." Thorn stepped back, but there was nowhere to run. The guard had just lost 2 slaves. No way were they going to lose a third. "Why'd I do something that stupid? Risking all for a couple of skinny kids?" The 6 guards surrounded him. Each was big, armed with a heavy club, and eager to give out a beating after a long, boring day. Lucas leered, weaving his blade through the air between them. "It's a mines for you, boy, but first I'm going to take out those green eyes of yours. You won't need eyes down in the mines." "I don't need no eyes to beat you, neither. I'll just follow the stink," said Thorn. He balled up his fist. He was going down, but not without a fight. A horse snorted. 10 sovereigns for the boy. A black stallion pushed past the curds and stopped in front of Thorn. He gazed up, past the stirrup, the well-worn boots and the sword hanging from the rider's hip, and to a pair of gold-black eyes. It was the swordsman who had been watching him early. He dangled a smaller leather purse. 10. What was going on? Bewilderment and wild hope fought in his Thorn's chest. There was a chance, a small, mad chance he might survive this. Might. Get out of here, snarled Lucas. Take that dangy donkey with you. 10. Are you thick or something? He's not for sale. Lucas gestured to the guards. Maybe I shall have my lads knock some sense into you, just so you understand. Thorn's hope faded. It was 7 against 1. The swordsman didn't stand a chance. Excuse me, hello there. It was Merrick, waving at them. What was the foolish minstrel up to now? Merrick performed a wild bow, arms flapping everywhere, and bending so low his nose almost touched his knees. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance again. The swordsman nodded. Merrick, isn't it? It's just a shame to see you in chains, thought not much of a surprise. Merrick beamed. I am flattered you remember me, Master Tyborn. The name hit the guards like a battered ram. A couple of them retreated, and Lucas' face turned ashen. Tyborn? They're scared of him? Tyborn tossed the bag to the ground. Have the boy cleaned up and brought to the Mermaid Inn tonight. And shave his head. I can see the lice dangling from here. Hey, I ain't got no lice, Thorn shouted. He only washed his hair last month. The boy needs to be made an example of. He needs to be punished, said Lucas, scowling. Tyborn leaned forward, his fingers casually brushing his sword hilt. Did you say something? Lucas gulped and shook his head. They ain't scared. They're terrified. Merrick cleared his throat loudly. I'll take the minstrel too, added Tyborn. He fished out another coin. Here's a crown. Just a crown? A crown don't buy you a skinny pig. But slave master didn't complain. Unchain the minstrel, he muttered. The guard blinked confused. Do it. Thorn couldn't believe it. He was free, just like that. Or was he? No one paid 10 sovereigns without wanting something in return. Think you've got off light, don't you? Said the slave master as he undid Thorn manacles. You have no idea. I know you ain't putting me down the mines. There are worse places than the mine. Thorn rubbed his now free wrist. It hurt, but it was a good hurt. No, there ain't. Do you know who Tyborn is? Never heard of him till now. Thorn grinned, but I saw how you wet yourself when he looked at you. You really are as green as grass. Tyborn's an executioner. Executioner? Every great house has one. It's the executioner's job to eliminate any threat to the ruling house. Sometimes that's done by heading up one army, but that's not Tyborn's style. If you put a drop of poison in your cup or a knife in your back, he's a man without honor. That's almost funny. A slaver talking about honor like he knows what it means. Still, that wasn't exactly good news. Thorn looked over at Tyborn. Why does he want me? Who does he serve? Lucas smiled and wasn't pleased. Look at him. What color does he wear? Tyborn's clothes was old, comfortable and muddy, but from his boots to his tunic to his gloves is all just one color. Black. The slave master's right. There were worse places than the mines. Tyborn served House Shadow. Chapter 3. Sit. Tyborn pushed a plate across the table. Eat. A whole roasted chicken, its skin crispy gold, sat in a gravy sea surrounded by islands of peas and turnips. The smell made Thorn's mouth water and stomach growl. As good as new and lice-free, said Lucas, rubbing Thorn's now hairless head. That coat is fur-lined, and those boots are as stunt as any you could hope for. He could walk 1,000 miles in those boots. Lucas smacked his lips loudly. Thirsty work, climbing that hill. Go do with something to wet my gullet before the long trek back down. What do you say, Master Tyborn? Get lost, replied Tyborn. Lucas hesitated, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. You still here? Asked Tyborn, not even looking up from his own meal. Yeah, you heard him, added Thorn. Just hurry up and get lost. Now. Lucas' eyes darkened, then he left, slamming the door behind him. Tyborn glanced at Thorn. I said, sit. Eat. Thorn sat down. The gravy was chocolate dark and thick, and the chicken skin was thinner than pastry flakes. The smell made him dizzy. He picked up his fork, trembling with excitement. Then he pushed the fork down. put the fork down. Why all this food? You're not hungry? You're trying to fatten me up, ain't you? Make me round and plump so you can feed me to your masters, the shadows? Am I going to be served with gravy too? Tyborn frowned. You think the shadows eat boys like you, don't they? Of course not. Tyborn torn off a strip of chicken. The shadows have delicate palates. You'd only give them food poisoning. Now eat. That wasn't the answer he wanted, but hunger was won over caution. Thorn grabbed a drumstick and bit into the juicy white meat. His taste buds, overwhelmed by the first decent food in months, burst with fire, and he gulped down a mug of watery mead. His tongue swam within the honey-flavored drink. Then Thorn shoveled in peas and wedges of turnips, barely drawing breath between mouthfuls. As soon as he emptied his mug, it was refilled, and he gulped that down too. When he finished one plate, another landed just as mountainous with hot food. Thorn attacked it like a wolf on winter end. His belly ached, but that didn't stop him. Gravy dripped from his fingers, and he licked them clean. More food arrived. A raspberry and apple pie with pastry thicker than his thumb and coated in custard. He broke the pie apart with a spoon, a nice fall of steam rising out of the cracks, before he scooped a large bite into his mouth. The pie burned, but he didn't care. Where's Merrick? Gone. Thorn gulped. Gone. Where is he gone? Tyborn smirked. You want to know if he's gone or gone? Do I have that right? Yeah. Gone to get some bread or to the rest and dirt for a real time. I haven't killed him, that's why you're worried. Thorn shook his head as he'd drawn his peas. Don't you want him as your minstrel? Haven't you heard the man sing? Asked Tyborn. Thorn smiled. Sound like a bag of cats. Then you know why I don't want him as my minstrel. As they ate, Thorn cast a sidelong glance at Tyborn, sizing up the man who had bought him. Tyborn didn't look like much. Stringy hair, a scarred face, and a cropped gray beard over a hard, bony jaw. He stood not much higher than Thorn. Thorn's dad was taller, and he had a wire build. He was old too, over 40. Where Thorn came from, that was graveyard old. But there was a saying back home, one his grandpa used to laud. There's a bit of a wolf even in a mongrel. Seen enough, boy? Asked Tyborn. Or do you want to stare some more? I ain't staring, Thorn snapped. He lowered his gaze and went back to the serious task of stuffing his face. He only stopped after his third helping. He groaned as he tried to give his belly room to stretch. The executioner on the plate was empty and sat pipe lit, watching. How old are you? Asked Tyborn. 12, master. Tyborn pointed to the amulet around Thorn's neck. What's that? Thorn slammed his hand over it. It ain't nothing. It looks like a comforter's mark, isn't it? Slowly, Thorn lowered his hand. Tyborn didn't want it, but he just was interested in it. Yeah, my dad carved it for me and the rest of our family. Your father a carpenter, then? Woodcutter. Does a bit of carpentry, doors, wagons, and the like. He puts the Egghunter's line on him so folks knew who made it. That was the dad's only trade, but Tyborn didn't need to know all about the others. Do you earn enough to just chop down trees? We got a few animals, said Thorn, chickens and swine and such. We help the local farmers a bit, picking apples, gathering hay, clearing the ground for the plow. It ain't hard work, and it puts bread in our bellies. That's all? Nothing on the side? No, lied Thorn. Show me your hands. Thorn laid open his palms. Tyborn held each, pressing thumbs against the hard callus. So you're used to axes. That's obvious. And these, archers, have similar lumps. Thorn didn't like this observation. They were too close to the truth. And so does every person who has a shovel. What about Quill? You know letters? Never had no need. Trees don't write and pigs don't read. He wished he did, thought. His sister had learned to read and write, but Thorn hadn't been interested. Now when there were trees to climb and streams to fish in. Now, if he had letters, he'd be able to write back home and hear the news. News he needed to know. Thorn pulled his hand back. What do you want from me? This and that. That ain't no answer. Tyborn dug his thumb into his pipe, raising a glow from smolder and tobacco. Do you know what executioners does, boy? Is this a trick question? A duo threads the house shadow, the family I've sworn to protect. Some are easy to spot, others are hidden. So I ask and listen to answer. I listen very carefully. That's how I know what's a threat and what's not. You understand what I'm saying? That you think I'm a threat? That I know when I'm being lied to. Tyborn stood up. Get some sleep. We've got a long journey ahead of us. They went northwest, along the cliff road, above the crashing waves and below a sky-dripping cold dribble. Tyborn high up on a saddle, and Thorn taken along on a donkey. The boy buried his chin deep into the fur of his coat. By his reckon, it was late September. Back home, the heat of summer will still be lingering in the breeze. Here, farther north, the wind already carried the bite of winter. They traveled one day into the next in silence. Thorn understood silence. He and his dad will sit in the forest, waiting, not saying anything from dawn till dusk. But Tyborn's silence was different. It weighed on Thorn, making him want to fill it. He kept his mouth firmly shut the first few days, but by the fourth he needed to speak, just to hear a sound between them. So as he and Tyborn were having breakfast at a roadside inn, Thorn spoke. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Home." "Home?" Thorn blurred, his heart jump. "To Stewart?" "Stewart? Is that where you're from?" "You fool, he's not talking about your home, he's talking about his." "Yeah, master," said Thorn cautiously. "It's a village in the Free Duchies. It ain't big." But it had everything Thorn wanted. Trees with the reddest, juiciest apples in the world. A river to swim in during the summer and skate on when the snow fell. A pond he and his brothers will spend whole days at catching frogs in his home. A small two-room timber house with a straw thatch roof built by his dad when he had married his mom. Near Hearn's Forest, isn't it? Why was Tyborn so interested? "I suppose." "Best you forget it," said Tyborn. "You have a new home now, Castle Gloom." "Is it far?" "We take the old road into Raven's Woods. After a fortnight or so, we'll cross the River Styx, and we're in Gehenna." Gehenna. A country of misty forest and craggy mountains, where the sun never shone and the dead walk. Why couldn't he have been rescued by one of the Solars? Now that was a great house. Ancient enemies to the shadows, their knights were the noblest of all men. The ruler, Duke Solar, had 12 daughters, each was this beautiful woman in all of the world. That didn't make a lot of sense, but Merrick, who said he had met them, swore it was true. Thorn could never become a knight, but he had make a good squire. He had looked after the horses, cleaned the armor, and tend the weapons. He had cheered his knight at jousts and tournaments, and he had served at the feast and see these beautiful daughters for himself. That will be a good life. But what was he doing instead? Heading off to a land of tombs and graveyards where he'd probably be sent to work in the kitchen, chopping up corpses for the oven. "What's Lord Shadow like?" said Thorn. "Merrick hasn't said much about Gehenna, ruler." "Dead." Tyborn's eyes narrowed. "He was killed 5 months ago. Gehenna is ruled by his daughter now, Lilith Shadow." "Lilith? What sort of name is that?" "It means Mother of Monsters." Thorn gulped. He could picture her, a hideous troll with a long warty nose, green skin, and iron teeth. Probably ate children for supper. Tyborn dropped a few pennies on the table. "Let's get going." Into Raven Woods. Sounded big. Thorn smiled. He liked woods, and the bigger the better. Tyborn was half right. Stewart wasn't just near Hearn's Forest. It was connected to it, a part of the world's oldest, largest forest. Almost from the day he was born, Thorn had accompanied his dad into the woods. He had learned more than just how to cut down trees, much more. Castle Gloom, his new home? Never. Stewart was home, and he had gone long enough. It's time I went back, and no executor's going to stop me. 4. I'll wait till he's asleep, real good and snoring. With any luck, he'd get a half-day's head start before Tyborn even knew he was gone. They left Cliff Road, turning away from the sea and into the trees. By lunchtime, the scent of Bryn was gone, and now the air was thick with pine and the smell of damp earth and rotted bark. They followed a rivulet that twisted and frothed between moss, rocks, and fallen branches. The dense canopy cast at their root into twilight, and that suited Thorn fine. With the ferns and the uneven ground, you could disappear within 10 yards. Tyburn stopped his horse and looked around him. You hungry? Thorn nodded. 2 months of living on slop, not fit for pigs, had left Thorn with a non-constant hunger. Sometimes he wondered if he'd ever feel full again. Tyburn squinted. My eyes aren't so good in the light. Tell me what you see. Tyburn jumped off his donkey, thankfully to stretch his legs and shake the ache out of his back. He searched the ground and picked up some dark rabbit droppings. Fresh. It's a trail. There must be a warren nearby. He looked along the shallow trenches through the tall grass. They must take this path down the stream to drink. You know how to set a trap? No, master, lied Thorn. Tyburn slid off his own saddle and inspected the roots along the bank. He plucked out a handful. Strange. A woodcutter's son who knows so much about the habit of rabbits, but not how to catch them. Me and my big mouth, he did that on purpose. Speaking of traps, Tyburn had laid one for him, and he had run straight into it. Thorn tried to cover up his mistake. We shall have bought the fish from the fishermen we passed a while back. I spent a month on the Sword Coast. I'm tired of fish. How about a rabbit? Tyburn twisted the reeds into a loop, using grass stalks for string. He tied one end to the top of a flimsy branch. Then he bent it down, wedging it placed with a simple wooden peg. Tyburn sprinkled grass around the loop so it couldn't be seen. The whole thing took a few minutes. It was a good snare, but Thorn Glad put it another few yards closer to the stream. Rabbits were less wary when they smelt water. Tyburn brushed the dirt off his trousers. We'll camp now by the stream, off at the path. So by nightfall, Thorn and Tyburn sat eating spit-roasted rabbit. The stars made their appearance between the cracks in the rain clouds. The moon was a sharp sickle, a silver-black sliding among the blackness. There's the High King crown, and the Manicore's tail. The stars were the same back home. For a moment, lying under his blanket with the campfire warm in his face, Thorn closed his eyes and almost imagined he was home. The donkey and the horse wandered nearby, drinking a snack and as it suited them. The campfire flickered red, and crackles Tyburn fed more twigs. Then he settled down, head rested on his saddle and blanket pulled over his shoulders. His sword lay beside him. Thorn knew what will happen next. A meal, a warm fire, and then under a thick blanket, Tyburn, like an old man, will become nodded off. Soon enough, the executioner's eyes drooped. His chin fell down to his chest, and after a few minutes, his breath was murmuring through his mustache. I'll give him a bit longer, just to be sure. At last, the only sound of the night was Tyburn's soft snores. Hardly daring to breathe, Thorn drew aside his blanket and got to his feet. His eyes stayed on Tyburn, watching for the slightest flicker of his eyelids. Thorn's boots creaked and the heat froze. Tyburn shifted and grunted, and that was all. Phew. Now what? It'll take a coin to get him home, but Tyburn's purse was on his belt. No way could Thorn get that. He needed something he could sell to market, the sword. Swords sold for plenty, even plain ones. He crept across the small camp, lowering each foot warily off his twigs, just like his dad had taught him. The branches bent but did not snap. He followed the first trap with another, then another. It seemed as though the sun would come up before he could reach the sword. But better slow and quiet than fast and loud. Finally crushed by the executioner's side, Tyburn didn't move. Thorn's breath trembled in his throat. His hands sweaty tightened around the leather-bounded hilt, and he lifted the sword. It was heavy. Thorn rested on his shoulder, the same way he carried his father's axe. Sell the sword and buy passage back to store. It didn't matter how long it took. Mom, his 3 brothers, and 2 sisters will be there. That was for sure. He'll have stayed and looked after everyone, like his dad had told them to. It was Thorn's job to put meat on the table, something to add to the pot along with turnips and onions from Mom's vegetable garden. He had been gone too long, and maybe Dad will be there. I'll hug him and tell him how sorry I am for everything. Things will be different this time around. Tyburn horse Thunder nudged Thorn's, wanted to know where he was going. Thorn rubbed his muzzle. Shh, let your master sleep. You stay here and be quiet, all right? Thorn really wanted to take him, but a peasant riding a war horse will attract all the wrong source of attention. He moved cautiously, using what little moonlight there was to avoid trenches and twigs and potholes. A twisted ankle now, and his plans would be ruined. When Owl hooted, Thorn glanced back. Even the glow of the campfire disappeared. He smiled. Tyburn will never find him. I'm going home. He checked the moss on the tree trunk. It always grew on the north side. The cliff road was to the south, not far. A branch creaked ahead of him. It was in the wind. It wasn't a deer exploring at night. Animals weren't so clumsy. A twig snapped and a man muttered a foul curse. Slowly, inch by inch, Thorn sank down behind a bush, down onto his hunches. He slid his sword off his shoulders and laid it on the earth. Foliage rustled ahead of him. Moonlight gathered on the edge of the steel blade. Men skull along the path. Where are they? Asked the one. How many are there? It was hard to tell in the shadows. The fisherman said they took this path, came the reply. He tried to sell them some fish. This is Tyburn we're talking about, said another. I have a bad feeling about this, Lucas. Lucas? Oh no. Finally, Thorn could make them out. There are 7 in all. The slave master grabbed the guard's collar. He's just one man, and he doesn't know we're coming. They brandished swords and axes, and each wore some piece of scavenged armor, a dented breastplate or rusty helmet. 2 carried loaded crossbows. When they came for slaves, they brought clubs, nets, and chains. They ain't here to catch Tyburn. They're here to murder him. Think about it, lad, said Lucas, his scarred face gauche in the moonlight. He'll be the fellows what killed Tyburn. He held up his knife for all to see. And the boy, I'm going to skin him alive. Chapter 5. Remember, there's 7 of us and 2 of them, said Lucas. Easy picking. Steel scraped against steel as weapons were drawn. Armor jangled as the man shrugged. Quiet now, lads, warned Lucas. We don't want to wake them if we don't have to. They're going to kill him in his sleep. Cowards. The bottom of the tree groaned and leaves rustled. The slavers moved away from Thorn. The sun was steadily smothered by the foliage. Thorn listened. Nothing. How far had they gone? Now what? He shall keep going. They won't find him. Not the slavers and not Tyburn. Forget Tyburn. He'll be dead in a few minutes. Thorn didn't owe him anything. The man was an executor. Tyburn's job was to go looking for trouble. You must have known sooner or later trouble will find him. The best thing for Thorn will be to stay well out of it. But something bothered him, like an itch between his shoulder blades. It didn't seem right, letting a man be murdered while he slept, even a man like Tyburn. Maybe he'd wake up. The slavers were making plenty of noise, so it seemed Tyburn's camp was off the path. Maybe they miss it. Just go. Leave them to it. That was the sensible, smart thing to do. No. Never gonna happen. It didn't matter who Tyburn was. Murder was murder. Thorn needed to get back. He wouldn't see time a branch rustled and a brittle twig snapped underfoot, especially a battle cry or an axe in the dark. But he met no one and soon reached the edge of the campsite. The fire was down to a few glowing embers, but he could just see the form of Tyburn still asleep under his blanket. His face turned away. Tyburn, Thorn whispered from behind a bush. Wake up! He scanned the trees anxiously. Lucas had to be nearby. Wake up, he said a little louder this time. What was wrong with Tyburn? Maybe it was his old man sleep longer and deeper. Then Thorn picked up a stone and tossed it, struck Tyburn's back, but the man slept on. Wake up! Thorn missed sword, then he'll have a chance. Thorn looked all around him. Where was the sword? He thought he had it with him. Cold horror rose from his belly. He put it down when he had hidden from Lucas and left it. The bushes opposite rustled. Shadows moved and steel shone. Tyburn, Thorn yelled. Luke and his men rushed into the camp. The crossbows thrummed and two thrall quarrels flew true into Tyburn's body. Tyburn! One of the guards, a bit brute with a black beard, brought his axe in to sleep a man. I've got him! Lucas stabbed down hard, snarling like a rabid dog. Thorn backed away. He had acted too late. Well done, men. Lucas swung around, face gleaming with sweat. Now where's the boy? I heard him shout. Thorn held still, every muscle motionless and holding his breath, so not even the leaves behind him moved. They killed Tyburn, and I let it happen. He was only a few yards away. They find him, and it'll all have been enough for nothing. Lucas laughed and kicked the remains. Not so tough now, are you, Tyburn? The guard with the axe grinned. Let's have a look. He lifted up the torn blanket. The grin froze. His eyes widened. Lads? There was no body underneath the blanket. Just a pile of clothing and the saddle arranged to assemble a sleeping man. Tyburn stepped out from behind a tree, a thick branch in his hands. He swung like a woodcutter chopped down a stubborn tree, all shoulders and hips to give the blow as much force as possible. The branch smashed the man's skull with a sickened wet crack. Tyburn heaved the branch up, shouting to drive another man, and lifted him clean off his feet. The remaining 5 surrounded him, swords, axes, and dagger in their sweaty palms. Tyburn held the branch closely in his. Run or die, said Tyburn. Your choice. That spurred them into action. Nothing more I can do here. Thorn ran. Shouts broke out behind him. Yell and violent roars and the sound of weapons clashing. Something large and heavy landed in the stream with a mighty splash. Thorn stumbled through the woods, not caring which way he was going, as long as away from the fight him. A man screamed. Thorn heard a loud thud. The scream stopped. He knew the sounds of the forest. Leaves rustling, twigs snapping as something fled in a panic. It might be a deer that smelt wolf or saw a hunter, but here was a man fleeing for his life. His eyes wide in fear of what was behind him. Steel bit wood. Thorn had heard that a million times before, but this wasn't his dad chopping down a tree. Someone had tried to chop down Tyburn with a sword, and missed. Bad mistake. The next sound was a sharp crack that made Thorn wince. That was no branch breaking. That was bone. The ground gave away, and Thorn tumbled head over heels, plowing down a mud-slicked slope. He banged his head and skinned his chin as he rolled down into a deep trench, coming to a halt in a pile of soggy leaves. Ow. He lay there panting, his head spinning. The only choice was his own breath. Was the fight over? Thorn tried to grab hold of the earth on the side of the pit, but it crumbled away. The few roots sticked out were too slick. He was stuck down here. Great. Just great. How much worse can it get? Thorn heard footsteps approach. Clearly a lot worse. Somebody won, but who? Slaver or executioner? Knowing his luck, which had been bad since the day he left home, and had grown worse with each mile, it'll be Lucas. By tomorrow he'd be back in chains, working down the mines with no eyes. A sill had appeared at the top of the ridge. Tyburn looked down at him, bruised but very alive, and holding a blood-spattered branch. Need a hand? You killed them all. How many were there? Asked Tyburn. 7. Then yes, I killed them all. 7 armed men killed with nothing but a stick. No wonder everyone's afraid of him. How could he act so normal when he has so much blood on his hands? Don't it bother you, Nan? Killing those men? Does cutting down trees bother you? It ain't the same. One day you might think differently. Tyburn reached down, grabbed hold and I'll pull you up. No, I like down here, said Thorn. Don't be foolish. Come on, take my hand. Then what? Tyburn frowned. What do you mean? I ran off. I ain't coming up with you if you're just gonna bash my brains out. You came back. That's not what I expected. I ain't gonna let a man be murdered in his sleep. Even a man like me? Was Tyburn smiling? If so, then it was the scariest smile he had ever seen. So you gonna let me go? You try to say Tyburn, even if the executioner hadn't really needed saving. That'll be fair. Unfortunately, life's not fair, so I'll be hanging on to you a while longer. Tyburn tossed the branch aside and raised his empty hand to her to show he was unharmed. How's that? Maybe you'll feel better. No, not really. But what choice did Thorn have? He did as Tyburn asked, and a moment later they were standing side by side at the lip of the trench. Tyburn faced him, his hands on his hip. Plan to run away again the moment I come back? No, master, no I ain't. Tyburn snorted. You're a poor liar, boy. All those months of misery boiled over as Thorn glared at the executioner. Yes, I'm glad I've run away. You might have bought me, but here, where I come from, men are free, and that's where I'm going, back home. How? I'll get a ship, sail across the sea. Which sea? There's more than one? Was the world that big? You're brave, I'll give you that, but you're stupid. You barged into trouble with no idea of how to get out of it. So what will happen is this. Even if I gave you a bag of gold and found Farewell right now, you'd be robbed or ended up back where I found you. These are lawless times, boy. He eyed Thorn curiously. They can make even good men disappear. Men desperate. Then what can I do? Tell me the truth. Thorn bit his lip, unsure if the truth will make this better or worse. Was Tyburn his friend or his foe? Give me one reason to trust you. Tyburn jerked his thumb over his shoulder, back towards the campsite. I can give you 7. If I were your enemy, you'd be over there with them. He had a point. All right, said Thorn. I'll tell you the truth. Where to start? Then he saw Tyburn's blood-spattered branch. I did something bad. Really bad. He closed his eyes and pictured the day so clearly, as he was standing there again, the blood fresh and wet on his hands. I did it, but my dad took the blame. I should have said something. I should have told him it was me what did it. Thorn wiped his face of tears he'd held back for months. But I was afraid. I was a coward. Then what? They're going to hang him. Thorn gulped as he remembered the soldier throwing a rope over a tree bought. But my dad got away. That's why I left home. I had to find him. I went from village to village asking, but no one has seen him. Then one night the slavers got me. They bundled me up on a ship, and that's how I ended up here. Tyburn Case didn't leave his. His dark eyes were 2 pieces of obsidian, giving nothing away. He's waiting for more. He knows I ain't telling him everything. That's the whole story, said Thorn, cross-armed defiantly. So, now you're going home, without finding your father. I weren't meant to be going this long. I thought I'd find him before the end of the summer. Thorn felt the cold wind upon his neck. It was autumn already. He was the oldest of 6 children, and if Dad wasn't back by now, he was. His job to look after them. Mom and her hands full looking after the little ones. He promised a local farmer he'd help bring them the harvest exchange for 5 sacks of flowers, enough to make bread through the winter. But the harvest was last month, and not been there. I'll make you a deal, said Tyburn. There are no slaves in Gehenna. You serve as my squire for a year and a day, and I'll give you gold and safe passage home. A year? Way too long. 6 months. A year and a day. 8 months. 8 months is fair. A year and a day. Tyburn started walking back towards their camp. Thorn kicked a pile of leaves in frustration. Why me? Tyburn called over his shoulder. I have my secrets too. Castle Gloom.